So little pieces of, let me know if you are having any trouble seeing or hearing. We'll get that little technical business out of the way. First place, if you're having trouble, hit your refresh. Then if you're having trouble, let me know. If you can see and hear, just give me some, yeah, I can see and hear or something. I have absolutely no clue at all why I picked this shirt to wear. Any idea why you're asking? Okay. I wanted questions, okay? Yes, I brought that on myself. Let's see. All right. Let's do a little news. We've got a seminar that we're going to kind of organize on the spur of the moment, mostly for some filming reasons. We're going to probably do a seminar in Spokane, Washington in late August. And it's not on the website yet because we're going to do it kind of like suddenly. Mostly, well, we'll tell you why when we put it up. We're going to be going to visit Shanghai, China here within the next probably 2 months. We're going to be setting up a network of Real Love in the Workplace trainers there, which is going to be fun. We're going to train people how to teach Real Love in the Workplace in China, and that's going to take a while to set up. We've got some people there who have some facility with training, and we just kind of need to start getting them going. We have a lady there who owns a franchise of trainers, and she's going to start that process with us there. PBS filming is going to be starting within the next couple of months. Let's see. What else? Oh, kind of big news. We're going to send out a notice here in the next couple of days, but I'm going to bring it up here just to get a little feedback from you if you feel like giving any. If you don't, then I'll move on. But we've got a Real Love in the Workplace training program that's a 10-part training that involves online training, which is an 80 class online training. It involves on-site seminar, involves pre-visit online surveys, lots of stuff that's involved. But it's also going to involve, in about 7 or 8 different places in the training, is going to involve Real Love business coaches, and the coaches are going to have to be trained. As this gets bigger, and as Real Love in the as Real Love in the Workplace, as the Real Love in the Workplace book becomes better known and starts selling in corporations, the training program is going to become in greater demand, and the need for Real Love business coaches isn't going to grow slowly. It's very likely going to explode, and we're not going to be ready for it. There's no way you can get ready for something that explodes. It's like cities that grow quickly, and then everybody goes, well, how come our roads aren't big enough? How do you get ready for explosive growth? You just can't. But what we're going to do is we're going to train people who want to become Real Love business coaches. And we realize that there's always a risk in being a pioneer. You know, here are these people who have taken Real Love coaching training, and a number of people have made, you know, many thousands of dollars as Real Love coaches. Other people have had a harder time getting their coaching businesses going. Some people just find it harder being entrepreneurs. Other people find that activity easier. But we've decided to jump in with both feet and take the risks with you. And so what we're going to do is in September put on a Real Love in the Workplace training program for coaches to train Real Love business coaches to do at least the first stage of training. And we're going to be inviting people from all over the world. There are going to be some people coming from China for that training. And we're going to train Real Love business coaches and offer the training for 2 days here in Rome, Georgia. And we're going to offer the training for nothing. So there will be no tuition. So that will decrease the front-end costs for training for you by a lot. And as people pre-register early, then they'll be able to hopefully fly in, share, 3, 4, 5 people to a car, come up, share hotel rooms, minimize the cost of the training, and then we'll recoup the cost of the training on the back end in training as we charge training fees to corporations. So thought we'd mention that to you. But that'll go out in an email in great detail here in the next couple of days. So if you have any questions, personal questions, let me know in the meantime. I think I've got some here. Should have brought my glasses, but I didn't. I was invited to a graduation party in which my only responsibility was to make sure that my ex showed up. Okay. I made it there first and was able to meet all the family members that had come for this event. My ex showed up. Needless to say, it was a bit strained, as I had to explain to everyone that we were no longer a couple, but that we had both been invited on separate occasions. The big surprise was that his grandmother had flown in for this event, and it would be the first time that she had seen him since he was 2 years old. The night went very well. I kept to the opposite side of him with his grandma between us, and all the other family members loved and accepted me even though I was no longer with their nephew/grandson. He was amazingly nice to me, saying thank you all night long, letting me take pictures of him with the family members. I even relinquished the camera I brought with me so that he'd have the pictures to remember the event. I was able to help him compile a list of family names and addresses, emails, and phone numbers so that they could keep in touch with each other after the night. The whole night was a gift. For me, it was a huge miracle and an opportunity to share real love with him. No strings, just unconditional love. 2 days later, I got a text message saying to stay away from him and his family. Yes, never shall any good deed go unpunished. That I owe them all huge amends for lying to him and to them, and that I cannot call him, text him, or email him, period. I hadn't done any of those things since June, and that I was to tell him to call his uncle about the graduation party. I was shocked, as he had every opportunity to tell me all this to my face that night, but he chose not to do so. I went there expecting nothing to transpire between us at all, and got a night full of good memories. Instead, I really lost nothing because my only responsibility was to get him to attend this event, and he did it without my help at all. I chose to respect his request, and I haven't had any interaction with him and his family since then. Could you explain the dynamics when this kind of thing happens? If it wasn't for my real love coach, I think this thing would have devastated me. Today, I'm truly thankful that I chose to leave the pig as I was learning more about being loving and putting these principles into action. I couldn't have done that evening without real love. In the past, I would have used this event as a way to keep him. Now I'm glad I didn't do so. All right. So why did all this happen? All right. So the implication she said here, if she's on tonight, she can give us some more details, but I don't think she is. Is that her job was to get him to come, and she says that she didn't have to do anything to get him to come. So apparently she didn't contact him. So he shows up at a family event where he would feel like he was waylaid. He shows up at a family event where all of a sudden he is surrounded by his family, her family. Many people are learning for the first time that they're no longer together. So he's feeling tricked and surprised, and he's having to explain to people that they're no longer together and why they're no longer together. Very few people like to be unpleasantly surprised. Oh, by the way, what you thought was going to be spaghetti and noodles is really going to be, dog food instead. Nobody likes unpleasant surprises. And so what he thought was going to be a graduation instead turns out to be, please explain your divorce to me party. So he didn't like that, and he wasn't told ahead of time that he was going to have to do that. And even though you didn't see any way to avoid that ahead of time, there was a way. You could have called him and said, look, there's going to be a whole lot of people here at this thing who don't know that we're separated. Now, duh. I mean, anybody with half a brain would realize that, and that he would have to explain that to people. But since many of the people who are there are related to you, this makes no sense to any logical person, but anybody who would make him uncomfortable that was related to you, he would blame it on you. So the only thing you could have done differently would be to say, look, here are some of the things that could occur. I realize this is going to happen. It's nice of you to come anyway. I appreciate all that you're going through. I know it'll be hard. Is there any way I could make this easier on you? Blah, blah, blah. Those are things you could have done differently. And you know what? It's still not your fault. So, even when you handle something perfectly, if somebody wants to be a victim, clearly he did want to be, then after the event, he's going to text you and text message you and email you and say, look what you've done to me, and don't ever talk to me again, and don't ever, oh, blah, blah, blah. All it is a way of saying, oh, look how you've hurt me. Look how I'm hanging on the cross. Do you see how I'm bleeding? Do you see, do you see, look, another drop has fallen from my right hand. Do you see, now see, now a drop from my left. Victims never tire of showing you their wounds. And if there's any possible way on the planet that they can think of any way to associate their wound with you, then they're going to blame you. This is not a complicated dynamic. But here's a really important thing for you to understand. Just because a victim can find some association between you and the wound doesn't mean there is one. Just because I come up to you and say, look how you hurt me, doesn't mean that you did. That doesn't make it true. And the more sincerely I cry doesn't make it truer. Get that? It doesn't. Now, let's say that I'm really a genius and I managed to find some association that is true, that in some way you really did somehow bring me into a situation where the pain was really directly associated with you. Then you go, oh, my bad, my mistake, but not I'm the cause of the pain. You get the difference? If you brought me into a situation where I experienced pain, if I'd been a completely healthy human being emotionally, I wouldn't be experiencing pain in that uncomfortable situation. I'm experiencing pain in this graduation situation, for example, only because I'm an empty and afraid human being, period. Because I'm sunburned from head to foot, and every little touch drives me into paroxysms of pain. So I never get to blame you for the pain. You never get to blame me for your pain. But there are times where it is appropriate for me to say, or for you to say, oh, my bad, I did make a mistake. But you don't ever feel responsible for causing the pain in somebody's life. Don't fall into that trap, but that's exactly what victims are trying to get you to do. Victims are trying to get you to be responsible for all the pain in their whole lives. And they're not kidding. They mean it. And they're quite sincere. They're not playing a game with you. They really mean it. They believe it. So I'm not making fun of them. They really think you caused it. Let's see. So we're talking about the business coach thing. Keith is in for that. If you're interested in the business coaching thing, you need to talk to me about that personally some more after this is over. All right. If you have any questions about that graduation thing, let me know. Victims do just love to stick it to you. It is just such the ultimate irony. The victims are always saying, look how you've hurt me. And of all the people on the planet, the most vindictive, the most cruel, the most cold, the most harsh are victims. Because once a victim feels like you have hurt them, he or she now feels completely justified in doing anything on the planet back to you. Hitler was just a victim, justified victim. Greg, my supervisor is like Medusa. For those of you who don't know, Medusa was a mythologic character who had a perpetual bad hair day. First thing in the morning, she brings to my attention all the things that I do to inconvenience her. How convenient, you see? This is classic victim stuff. See, she comes in the morning and points out to you how you are the cause of all of life's problems. How nice for her. Why would she do that? Because if she can come in and point out how you're the cause of everything wrong with her life, now she doesn't have to change in any way, does she? She doesn't have to grow or learn or anything. Everything's your fault. It's just, how convenient. She's even made me responsible for my son's choice not to acknowledge her presence. So I'm guessing that if your son's in the office occasionally, when she comes in and he doesn't pay attention to her, that I guess it's your job to make him pay attention to her. Sick, huh? In learning how to unconditionally love her, I've done my part, admitted my faults, told her that I'll probably make mistakes while I'm learning, and will for the rest of my life learn from those mistakes. Good for you. And it's just not good enough. Yeah, that's often the case with victims. In the perfect world where only she exists, this is very true with victims, no one is allowed to make mistakes. So I chose to lie to her, which, by the way, is sometimes the only thing left to do with a victim, and tell her that I will never make another mistake like that again. I'll bet that worked. Not only was that a lie, very contrary to putting those real love principles into action, but I felt I had to compromise my beliefs to accommodate her need to be right. That was a terrible mistake. Never tell a victim you won't make a mistake again, because then what's going to happen is now, not only are you going to make that mistake and be called on it, but you'll be called on your mistake and your lie. I called my real love group to tell on myself. Good for you. I'm sincerely working on myself and choosing not to cause any more discrepancies that may inconvenience her any further. Is there anything that I'm not seeing that could possibly help in a situation like this? It looks like I may be unemployed in the near future as a result of not being able to make mistakes on my job. Got any solutions? Yes, I do. Now, notice this. This is very important. You said, I'm working on myself and choosing not to cause any more discrepancies that may inconvenience her. Wrong attitude. It is never my job to change my life so that I don't inconvenience you. Because now I've just made myself a slave to you. I've just made myself responsible for your happiness. See the problem? And that's what you're doing. You're making yourself responsible for this victim's happiness. No. Your goal is always to make your job is to always make goals that involve only you. So, you want to become more loving, more competent, more honest, more caring, more whatever, and here's the hard part, and let go of the consequences. So, you want to be more honest, more caring, more competent, and if that results in your losing your job, oh well, you wouldn't want to keep that job then, would you? Because keeping that job would require your lying, and no job's worth that. If you got to lie to keep, you got to go find another. You got to quit that job because the weight of that job is just too heavy to bear. So if the goal of your job is to not inconvenience somebody, oh, you're doomed. So you got to be thinking about whether it's even worth trying to save the job. That kind of job will just kill a person. No, you just want to be a better person. Same is true like in a marriage, for example. My goal isn't to be less offensive to my partner. My goal isn't that my partner will be less hurt, or that my partner will be happier, or that anybody in my life will be happier. No, my goal is to be more loving. My goal is to tell the truth about myself better. And then whether that person takes the love in, whether that person feels it, whether that person chooses to accept my love, whether that person is happy, that's not up to me. That's up to them. And I got to let go of the end result of what I do. I have to. Got to do it with the child too. Parents will say, well, but it's my goal that my child will be happier. No, you can't have that goal. You can't have a goal that involves somebody else. Is that clear? And it's a tricky little thing, because we often think that it's a good thing to have a goal that involves somebody else if the goal is good. You know, it's a good goal. Well, but my goal is that they'll be happier. Oh, wrong? Well, that they'll be better. No. Well, but my goal is that we'll have a better relationship. No, you just made a goal that involves somebody else. You don't get to do that. The law of choice, remember? Everybody gets to make their own choices. You don't. Let's see. Here's a question that was sent to me earlier. During my divorce, there were several times when I broke down and cried in front of my wife. By working on real love and telling the truth about myself, I now question why I cried. This is very brave, by the way, of you. Because if there's one thing in our society that people are afraid to question, it's tears. Ooh, boy, you want to question why somebody cries? You'll be a monster. Oh, because tears are pure. See, you don't want to dare question why somebody cries. What was I really doing? Was it true sadness, or was it an unconscious getting and protecting behavior? Now, see, notice, I don't know. I don't know to judge, but you're having the guts to ask. That's very cool. Looking at the behavior of my greatest teacher, that's a good place to look. My mother, I see that there's something about crying. My mother has the need to be right, a destructive behavior that I picked up without knowing it. And if you question her need to be right, what does she do? She begins to cry. Now, see, that's a very clever thing to pick up on. I've seen a lot of people do this. You start questioning them and pushing them, and what do? Well, I'm just doing my best. Because then once somebody cries, what are they saying? Just as clearly as though you wrote it on their forehead, they're saying, you've hurt me. And now if you take one step further, you'll be hurting me. You will be a monster. Do you see that? You don't dare do anything to somebody who's crying. And so now they get to go, I'm the ultimate victim, I was right. I've been victimized, so you must be wrong. It's very clever for you to see this. She'll then say things like, stop talking about this, or I'm going to cry. Or I love you, that's why I'm teaching you this. And if somebody says something through their tears, well, that's like, it's very similar, in fact, to questioning somebody on their deathbed. No joke. I don't know if you know, in many states, that, hearsay is not admissible in state. Well, I heard somebody say, well, so. But if somebody says something on their deathbed, in many states, that is admissible. Because what somebody says on their deathbed, people are presumed on their deathbeds to have no reason to lie. And so they are presumed to be speaking the truth. And we will do something like that with people when they're crying. So when somebody's going, we go, oh, they must be telling the truth because look at the purity of their tears. And so we stop questioning them. It's really quite a weapon, tears. Mind you, I'm not saying every time somebody cries, they're doing that they're using a getting or protective behavior. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that they often are used as a weapon. And now I see her crying for what it really is in these situations, that she's playing the victim role. And her biggest winning script is to cry in order to let you know that what you're saying is hurting her. Oh, this is a genius on the part of the person writing this. See, as a result of a lifetime of living with his mother, he's going, I got it. Mom has been controlling me all these years. She would get me to the point where she'd go, look what you've done to me. And then you were screwed. Now you were doomed. You couldn't take another step because you were hurting your mom. Oh, now look, you've made your mother cry. See, then Dad would step in and go, see, you made Mother cry. And well, now you're the beast. You were the beast from the Black Lagoon, and you couldn't do anything more. See, and what he's identifying here is that he learned to do the same thing. Oh, see, that's just genius. We identify getting and protecting behaviors in other people not so that we can say bad person. No, we identify them so that we can learn to identify them in ourselves. Yeah, and so we can also identify the times when we're being manipulated, but not to vilify people. It's useful information. From the real love space, which I'm working on, I will sometimes sit and talk to her now here he is as an adult, from the law of choice. Events and judgments, which she's repeatedly using her I need to be right behavior. She takes on the role of a victim when she's crying, and I tell her in a calm voice, I say, there's no need to cry over this issue, which she would have a hard time hearing this, and say, I love you no matter what. And I let her know that most of our judgments are unconscious, and we don't even know we're reacting the way we do to events in our lives. Unfortunately, she just cries more, and then she says things like, well, your ex-wife and her friends have poisoned your mind. See, which is just another way of her saying, I'm right, and you're wrong. So I tell her that I just found real love, and he tries to explain real love to her, and I imagine she just doesn't enjoy that a bit. And then she says, that Greg, what's his name, is poisoning your mind, which is probably true. And all you do is talk about what he's shown you, because that's another great way of being a victim. If she can say, that Greg, what's his name? And see, even saying, what's his name? I'll bet she knows my last name. But if she says, what's his name? That demeans me, which makes me less credible. And now that makes it makes you, more of a monster, more foolish for listening. And then it makes her more, what does she always want to be? Right. And the more right she is, the more you have to listen to her, and the more you don't, then the more of a monster you are when you don't. And listen to her, and then she cry. Oh, she's just really got a victim thing set up. And victims have to set it up like that. Victims have to be wounded. We often look at victims and go, Excuse me? That hurt your feelings? You forget that if a victim can't have hurt feelings, what have they got? They haven't got anything. So they have to have their feelings hurt. And if you don't give them a reason, don't make one up. What I realize is that I have adopted this victim strategy during my divorce. And on a few other times that I have cried in my life as an adult. I think I see it now for what it really is. If I cry, people have to love me. Now see, that's another little clever thing with victims. It makes people wrong. They have to listen. They have to stop hurting you. And now they have to pay attention to you. Oh, it is so sneaky. I mean, I've watched people bring an entire room to its knees with tears. I've watched some of my patients when they're like getting operated on, for example, when they weren't getting, I've watched them intentionally do this. When they weren't getting enough attention from the people in the room, when it was getting closer to the time of the operation, I've watched them look around and then go, and then more people would look at them and they would brighten up. It's amazing. You can turn up the victim machine and get more attention and be happier about it. It's something else to watch. Like he says here, what a great way to manipulate and control people. I never saw it that way. Of course not. If you're trained in it from literally your mother's knee, how would you see it as a manipulation? It's a way of life. But it really helps me understand why I cried when my wife just looked at me. I'm sure she saw me the same way that I now see my mother, a victim trying to manipulate her all the time. I really thought my crying was showing my real pain, that it proved my real love for my wife, when in fact it was coming from a selfish imitation love space. Wow. Every week I get new insights and I'm able to see myself better. Yeah, no kidding, huh? And it's like every week, the more we see, the more we see. And sometimes it gets kind of ugly, But there you go. Let's see here. Vicky says, I need to say that I'm afraid to ask a question because I feel like I should know the answer and I will look bad. Vicky, we already know you're a bad person. So there's no question you could ask that's going to make you look any badder than we already know you are, okay? So just bring it on, girl. Jonathan says, we can't see you so you won't look bad. You just sound bad. I love it. Vicky says, my ex-partner's new partner told her a huge lie that was painful. And now I'm limiting my contact with this new partner, which feels like the most loving thing, but it also seems like running. A coach told me it was being responsible, and I'm struggling to understand this. Yeah, how do you tell the difference between running and wisely avoiding something? It's really pretty simple. Fear. For example, there are some people that as you're learning to grow in real love, and as you just want to have a more loving heart, there are some people you just don't want to be around, I mean, if you're going to church or a wedding or a graduation or whatever in a white suit, you would avoid the mud fight that you see on the way to the graduation, wouldn't you? It's not running, it's wise. Well, that's what you'd be doing here with this new partner of your ex-partner. I mean, there's some people that are just a drag to be around because they're constantly sucking the light out of the sun. They're constantly victims and attacking and lying and running and all that stuff. And, unless you're perfectly loving and have infinite time, why would you choose to be around that kind of person? You have too many people in your life where, with your finite amount of time and love, you only got so much. You only got so much time, and you only got so much love. So here's the box. And you only got so many people in your lifetime that you can give that to. So use it wisely. Why? You hate to say the word waste, but it is. And when I say waste, I don't mean that these people don't deserve to be loved. They do. But you only have so much to give. And wouldn't you rather give it to the people where you can do the most good with? Yeah. So, picture this. Picture love as a glass of water. So, I can choose with my glass of water to water 5 plants that are just beginning to wilt. And if I water those 5 plants, they're just going to pick up. They're going to pick up, they're going to turn greener, they're going to bear fruit if I put a little water on them. Or I can take that glass of water and pitch it in the ocean. Well, now, the ocean needs some water too, right? But where would my glass of water do the most good? Duh. So it's not like that person's a waste. But I make that kind of decision every day. I do. There are some people whose phone calls I don't return. And I used to always return phone calls. I don't. There are some people's projects I don't take up. There are some people's questions I don't answer. Because I don't have the time and the energy. I just don't. And you may not with this person. Let me know if that's helping. Now, if you're avoiding somebody out of fear and you're doing it reflexively, where you have no choice, like you see somebody and just you run. You can't stop yourself. That's running. If you see somebody and you go, I don't have the energy to deal with that. I got about $5 worth of real love, and that person would suck $50 out of love out of me like that. So, there's no sense in me even going into that situation. I'm going to go somewhere else. That's not running. That's called prudent withdrawal. Now, here's somebody who says, I love the description, but it seems so much harder when the person that you're wisely withdrawing from is living 30 miles away, and it's your mother. I know how much harder that is. You think I haven't done this with people? All these things I'm telling you about, I've done many times with many people. And you have to do it anyway. For the first at least 2, I wish I'd kept better records then, but not really important in retrospect, I suppose. But for at least the first 2, maybe 3 years that I was learning real love, I made virtually no contact with my parents at all. None. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Why? Because my parents were bad people? No. Because I was insufficiently loving to be able to have loving interactions with them. See? So the math of this is really simple. It took this much love to have a loving interaction with my parents. And I had this much to give them. So I did the math in my head. I had this much. This is how much was required. Well, this just ain't complicated. So I said, if I go into the situation requiring this with this, I'm a dead man. So rather than go in and know that I'm going to have a miserable interaction, I'm going to say something unkind, I'm going to feel like a victim, I'm going to say something angry, I'm going to make the situation worse. Why go into something where you know you're going to make it worse? Instead of doing that, I didn't go into it at all. I didn't call them. They would call, I didn't return the phone call. Or I would explain, I may not be calling for the next 6 months, or, whatever it is. Explain it. For the next 6 months or so, I may not be calling much at all. And I'm the problem. It has nothing to do with you. If you have to, blame somebody else. When I'm personally counseling somebody, I tell them, blame me. Tell them that I counsel with you and I gave you a doctor's order. I'll write it out on a pad for you if you'd like. Susie is forbidden to speak to her mother until April 6th, 2025, or whatever it is. Because until you're loving enough to have a loving interaction, if you can't bring love to an interaction, why have one? It only makes things worse. And it's usually good to explain that to people. Here's why. I'm the problem. It ain't you. If you imply in any way to the other person that it's them, you're screwed. If you say, well, Mom, it's because, you, as soon as you say the word you're doomed. There's no way they can hear it. None on the planet. Don't do it. It's all your fault. Now, did they have a part in it? Sure. But why explain that to them? Because really, in the end, it's you anyway. No matter what their problems are, if you were perfectly loving, you could still have the interaction. So it's really still you. One of my most dangerous behaviors, Alan says, is to overeat. Medicating myself with food in an attempt to feel better, deaden the loneliness, I suppose. Yeah, it's a medicine. I know it. I see it happening. It's a powerful force. And I know if I had more real love in my life, I wouldn't be doing this. What advice could you give in addition to continuing to make lots of real love calls to know how to deal with this? So, tell the truth about it. Say, when I feel lonely and when I don't feel loved, I eat. Just keep telling people the truth about it. And don't walk around feeling bad and guilty about it, because if you do, the more guilty you feel, the more you will eat. And that's all. And then wait. And wait. And wait and tell the truth about it to people and keep telling people the truth about it. And the more loved you feel, it will slowly change. If you try to force it to happen, it won't. Getting and protecting behaviors disappear as we no longer have a need for them. So just keep telling people how you're doing. Tell people, yeah, last night I sat down and I had my 2 quarts of butter pecan ice cream. Never met a bag of potato chips I couldn't conquer. There's somebody in the Pleasanton group who said, by the way, let's see, did you know that it was really me asking the question about the mother? This business with families, you got to remember that it is our families, and it was our families, and has been our families that created the problems that we're living with. Our families are what put us where we are, and I don't mean that in a victim-y way at all. It's just the way it is. It wasn't the mailman. I mean, it was our parents and brothers and sisters and uncles and aunts and teachers and friends. It was that milieu. It was that mess that created us. And so going back to that is going to prick our wounds the easiest by far. These are people that created the wounds. You think these people don't know where the wounds all are? So if you are about to have a family reunion or a gathering or whatever, and you feel like, oh man, I just don't think I can handle it, then don't. Then don't handle it. Don't go. Don't go to an event until you feel loving enough to do it. Don't make a phone call until you feel loving enough to do it. Don't go to a birthday party until you feel loving enough to do it. If you go into a situation inadequately prepared with enough love to be unconditionally loving, you will make it worse. why would you knowingly go into a situation and make it worse? Imagine that I were to go to a reunion. Now picture this. And I said to you before I went to the reunion, I'm going to go to the family reunion and I'm going to increase the discord. I'm going to sow seeds of hatred. I'm going to decrease the love at the reunion. I'm going to make people contentious and angry, and I'm going to make everything worse. What if I told you that was my goal? What would you think? You would think, what is wrong with this guy? Wouldn't you counsel me not to go? Well, see, if we go to a reunion or to a family event and we know we don't feel loving enough to handle it, that is what's going to happen. So people say, well, but I didn't mean to cause all those things that we caused, the hurt feelings, the bad things that we said and so on. Well, yeah, but you didn't mean not to cause them either. Do you get it? So what happens is people say, well, every time we have a family reunion, the same old things happen. We go and it's the same old crap every time. You've heard that. When I get together with her, we have the same old, same sparks fly. Well, then if the same stuff happens, unconscious, though it may not be conscious, you are establishing a goal that it's going to happen every time. If you're not establishing a goal for ways for it not to happen, then you are making it happen. So until you can make it not happen, don't go. If you can't make it not happen, one thing that you can do is not attend. You can always refuse an invitation to a fight. Remember that. Write it down, in fact. You don't have to go. Alex says, can I not go to work until I feel loving enough? Yes, but then they will fire you. Let's see. Melissa says, my son David was playing with a friend, and there was a misunderstanding. David is 5, not too young to learn. He believes that his friend was just being mean. But it's clear to me and the friend's mom that his friend was just playing. David's birthday party is coming up in 2 weeks, and even though Austin has been his friend the whole year, he doesn't want to invite him to the party. Now, how can I talk with David about this? I'd already verbally invited Austin to the party. I'm concerned that if he comes, David will make a scene. Okay. So here's the deal. If it's David's party, he's the king of the party. And if he doesn't want to invite this kid Austin, there are things that kids have to understand they own. And if he's told, well, I've already invited this kid, then what you're telling your son is, well, it's your birthday party, but not really. It's your birthday party, but I'm in charge of who comes. What are you telling this kid? Talk about emasculating, talk about controlling. Whoa. It's your life, but not really. I'm going to control it. He has to control who comes to his party. Now, what I would do, this is just me, I would sit down with David and I would say, we'd go over the misunderstanding. And I would say, look, people do stupid stuff. This kid, whatever, Sean or Austin, he may have even done a thoughtless, stupid thing. But so do you. We all do thoughtless, stupid stuff. We make mistakes. You might even explain to him a possible reason for why he did it, or that he was just whatever. And so you might even explain some getting and protecting behavior the kid was using. At 5, kids grasp stuff. You say, look, the kid was feeling afraid, he was feeling empty or whatever, and in order to feel strong again, he lit something to you, whatever. But you can explain this to David. Then you say, now, do you understand why the kid did this? Then you say, that doesn't mean now that you understand it, that you have to invite him. You see, David always has to feel safe with you. You're his mom. And he has to feel safe in his world. And above all, he has to feel safe at his own dang birthday party. Hello? It's his party. His. So you say, and he also has to learn from the law of choice. He gets to make mistakes. He sometimes gets to learn from making selfish choices. So you say, all right, now you understand why. You get the whole picture here. And I trust you to make the choice of whether this kid, Austin or Freddie or who cares, comes to the party. So it's your choice. It's a very powerful thing to hand over to a kid that trusts to make a decision. So he's really got to make that choice. But you can't make it for him. You control him, he's going to feel just killed. Well, obviously you can control him. I'm just suggesting you don't. Lorelei says, when I'm afraid to share something that's important to me because I don't want that person to get angry, I know that's about the past, but what behavior is that? If you're afraid to share something that's important because you don't want to get angry, the behavior is lying and running and acting like a victim. You see how it's all of that's in there? So let's say that there's something that I want to share with you, but I'm afraid you're going to get angry. Well, I'm lying because I'm not going to share something that's true with you. So if I'm not going to share it, I'm hiding it, I'm lying. I'm running because I'm withdrawing emotionally from you by not sharing the truth with you. I'm acting like a victim because the only reason I wouldn't share that with you is because you're a big, bad, mean person who, if I were to tell you the truth, would hurt me, and then I would be victimized. See how we do them all at the same time. And let's see, what's the other one? Lying. I guess the only thing I'm not doing is attacking. So we tend to do multiples of getting and protecting behaviors at one time. We don't usually do just one. Melissa, so we were talking about her son David. She said, yes, I have been having difficulty letting him make mistakes and take the consequences. Parents, gosh, if there was 2 principles I had to teach parents, they'd be this. First one, never get angry. Well, you can get angry at a child, no sweat, but go express it to an adult. Never express your anger at your child because all they hear is, I don't love you. And then the next one is, let them make mistakes. I mean, how's a child ever going to feel loved by you unconditionally if you don't let them make the mistakes for which you're going to love them unconditionally? Get the point? I mean, how do you tell a child, I love you no matter what, but I'm going to control you if you're ever about to make a mistake? See how ridiculous that looks? No. Real love is, you're about to make a mistake, and you know what? I'm going to let you. And I'm going to support you in making that mistake. Now, that doesn't mean you let him make every mistake. No, the rule of thumb is, you let children make mistakes when they understand the consequences of the mistakes. Not just when they won't make the mistakes. That's nothing. No, because they're going to make them. No, when they understand the consequences of them. In other words, you don't let a child make a choice about drinking cleaning fluids. Oh, sure, if you want to find out whether they hurt you or not, go ahead and have a drink, because they don't understand the consequences. But, the child understands that if he doesn't invite the kid to the party, the kid will probably be mad. He understands that it's selfish. He pretty much understands the picture as much as most adults ever would. In fact, most adults don't get the picture of that scene. So he gets it. Let him make the choice. We make mistakes. Why do we always get in the way of making our kids make them? And boy, do they learn from them. And then they feel trusted by us. And then gradually, here's the cool thing, they make them less. Whereas if we choose for them, they don't learn anything. All they learn is, Mom just controlled me again, or Dad did. That's not a very useful lesson. Mom will always step in and control me if something's about to go wrong. So So I know it takes guts, Mom, and I admire you when you do it. I never had to learn this lesson with my children because they never made any mistakes. Jonathan's over there going, yeah, right, that's right. So, we got 2 minutes left. This has been delightful, like just really a hoot. So next Tuesday, come back. Please email your questions. I don't know if you noticed, but we occupied half of our time dealing with questions that were emailed ahead of time. So email your questions to me ahead of time, greg@reallove.com. We will answer those first, and then we'll deal with your questions that you asked live. Jonathan's saying here, I always thought I never made any mistakes. Glad to know that he has finally acknowledged this truth, this profound truth, come to think of it. I mean, we've all got to have some sort of pivotal axis upon which our lives revolve, and in this case, it is that Jonathan never made mistakes. Good to have that one. And we'll see you back here a week from today. In the meantime, love you all to death. We'll see you next week.